This is Marriage on the Half Shell, Ron Exposed. So we decided to name tonight's episode How to Train Your Dragon. But, it's not, your spouse isn't really a dragon. Well, sometimes. Sometimes, things can get a little hairy. But so what we're going to discuss tonight, we've listened to a video by Dr. Peterson about it's how to train your spouse. And I know that sounds like, your spouse is not a dog or a cat, but there are things that you do in your marriage that perpetuate either good habits or bad habits.
Yeah.
And if you choose the bad habits, then you're going to end up on a very bad path. And those habits are going to be hard to break. So that's kind of what we're going to discuss tonight. And it's how you relate to your spouse so that you have a positive home. Right?
Sure.
Okay.
Among other things.
A positive, happy home full of joy and gratefulness and everything else that you want your home to be when you're married and you have kids. It's that kind of thing.
Right.
All right. So
but let's be upfront.
Okay.
Okay. Well, so he's Jordan Peterson's pretty blunt.
Yep.
So we'll link the video that we referenced in the show notes, but he calls it How to Train Your Stupid Partner.
Yes.
And he doesn't mean how wives train husbands or how husbands train wives. It goes both ways.
You're both stupid.
You're both stupid. Exactly. Right. We're going to make it clear up front. This is about both of you doing this with each other, for each other.
Right.
Okay. So it's not what you might think at first.
Yeah.
But it's also based on a lot of psychological studies that have been done over many decades as well.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
So.
And one thing this was something that happened earlier this week. I listened to 3 or 4 podcasts a day. And one of them referred to, I will not give the title of this Instagram page, and I will not give her name because she does not deserve any more traffic than she's already getting because she's damaging relationships. But one of the podcasts I listened to, this man found it's a woman. She's married. She's got some kids, and she writes comic strips. And I suppose they're supposed to be funny.
She thinks
they're funny. She has quite a few followers who also think that they're funny. I went and looked at them. I was not amused. I was disgusted. It made me angry that there are women following because, obviously we've talked about women who have issues with bitterness and resentfulness and, all of this stuff. And this woman is riddled with it. And I don't think that it's going to be very long before her marriage goes to pieces and she doesn't have subject matter for her stupid comic strips anymore. So that's on the other end of the spectrum from what we're talking about, right? We're talking about a woman who has trained her husband the wrong way and
to do the opposite of what he should be doing.
Yes.
And he is obviously not training her to do anything good either.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not standing up to her, stepping up and saying, how about a little respect in our home or, don't talk to me like that in front of the children because then they think he's just not doing any of that, at least from what we can see in this awful comic strip. So that's kind of on the other end. And I've just encountered too many women who live in that world. They never have positive things to say about their spouse. If you ask them about their kids, it's all this, my kid is doing this and that, and I'm so proud of them, and they're making straight A's, and they, all of this. But then you turn around and ask them about their spouse, and you get nothing but he doesn't do this, and he doesn't do that, and, he just makes me unhappy, and all he wants to do is fight. And it's just one thing after another. And it's not, this is not conducive to a happy home in any way, shape, or form. So anyway, so let's start.
So we're trying to avoid that situation.
Yes, that's the situation we're trying to avoid. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so this thing starts out with a lot of people when they first get married or first start dating, or not necessarily always when you first start, but it can also develop on a lot of things we talk about, apply to all the stages here, where you see something that your spouse does, and remember this goes both ways, and the first thing you do is criticism.
Yes.
And the way Jordan Peterson puts it is, you are a stupid person and will always be a stupid person.
Yes.
Right?
So you've given them
so they have nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go.
You can't negotiate out of that.
Yeah.
You can't recover.
Yeah.
And then it just starts a fight.
Yeah.
I mean, and nobody wants to be called a stupid person.
Right.
Because in reality, I mean, like we said earlier, we are all tongue-in-cheek. We're all stupid because we miss things. We forget things. We haven't developed the habits yet, especially early in your marriage.
Right.
Of caring for one another, or you haven't even had time to negotiate the things that you should each be doing to make the home run smooth.
Right.
That sort of thing.
Right. And one of the reasons I think this happens more with females than with males, it has to do with our neuroticism. We tend to be more negative because we are the ones that have the babies. We're the ones that have the babies and primarily take care of them. So that protective instinct in us doesn't want anything to be messed up in our home or in our relationships. And I think that's why women tend towards this more than men. It's not that men don't do it. Men go out and gripe about their wives, right? But it's much more common with women. So it is imperative, ladies, that we fight that base instinct. I mean, that's really what it is. You want to protect your home and your children, and if you set yourself up so that your husband is the enemy, then you're not doing yourself any favors.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. And just a reminder, we've said this before, but, if you look at your spouse, either way, whichever, husband or wife, if you look at them as a loser, then you're the one who married a loser.
Yeah.
So you don't want to view people that way.
No.
In general, you don't want to view your spouse that way. You don't want to view your children that way, or your friends.
Right.
Until they really prove it. To you.
Right.
But I think too often we just jump right to that conclusion based on seeing how they live their lives, their habits, right? And you haven't given them a chance to change. Right. So we've also talked about there are plenty of things that you're going to just have to overlook.
Yes.
Right. But you can start with picking the top things.
Yeah.
Right. That you want to get changed, and pick one and really just work on it.
And by work on it, it will, this is another thing Dr. Peterson said, was let your spouse do it badly at first. Like if you tell them there's some correction that needs to be made,
keep going.
They may only do, small incremental changes. And that's just something that you're both going to have to, that's where you're going to have to exercise patience, um, acknowledge the small changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just,
Well, and we're getting ahead of ourselves.
right. Okay.
I mean, so the process, and it's funny, but it's just like training a dog. And we don't mean that in a negative way.
Right.
It's that I'll say this: the humans are very responsive to reward.
Yes.
We all are, right?
Reward and encouragement.
Reward and encouragement.
Yes.
So that's the same way you are supposed to train a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into the process of doing it, but you don't punish them for doing bad things. You reward them for doing the good thing.
Right.
And he talked about a study that Skinner did
B.S.
with
Skinner.
rats,
Mm-hmm.
and how he trained them to do all these complex things for a rat.
Right.
Right. So imagine what we can do as humans. Much more. The other thing before we get into the process is we always expect that our spouse can read our mind, and they can't.
Right.
Right. So we don't know what you want, women, and it's the same
Right.
thing for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So
One phrase you should eliminate is, he should know what I want because he loves me.
right.
That is not going to help anything.
And he does love you,
Yes.
but that doesn't mean he knows what you want. Right?
Yeah.
Especially if you've never told him or only told him once or twice.
Right.
You have to, and we've talked about this. This is where the negotiation comes in. You have to kind of talk about what you want.
Right.
So here's the process.
Okay.
Just go through it. So it says, express the behavior you want in the highest resolution. Be detailed, right? But you're looking for the minimal necessary change to get that behavior.
Right.
Okay. And he had an example of the husband sitting there doing whatever, reading a book or whatever. And the wife gets home and expects to be greeted at the door. Maybe that's because that's the way she grew up and that's the way her parents were. Who knows? But he doesn't. He says, "Hi, how you doing?" And then goes back to reading or whatever. And she feels let down, neglected, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's neglecting her. It's just that he doesn't know that that's what she needs
Right.
to feel good when she gets home.
Right.
Okay. Do you remember how he expressed how she should tell the husband what to do?
It was like, if I would appreciate it if when I get home, you would get up and at least come over and just say hi, give me a kiss.
Meet me at the door.
Meet me at the door, ask me how my day was, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And listen.
And listen.
She talks about
yes.
the day. And it takes like 5 minutes, and then you go on and do things, and that helps. And it's a minimal necessary change. And remember, we're just talking about one thing.
Right.
To start off, and then you build on it.
Right.
Right. And you're doing it for each other. So let's say that's the wife getting home, and that's what happens.
Right.
Okay. So express it in the behavior you want at the highest resolution, meaning just be detailed.
Yeah.
Right. And then when he doesn't do it, for instance, don't punish, just keep going.
Yeah.
Maybe if he doesn't do it for another week or whatever, then you kind of remind him.
Yeah. And don't.
But it's not as a punishment.
Right.
It's you're just talking about. Remember we talked about this.
Yeah. Don't remind him in a naggy, awful way. You would say something like, "Hey, I really liked it when you would, stop your activity, whatever you were doing, and come and greet me at the door. It really means a lot to me."
Yeah.
Say something like that. Not, "You stopped greeting me at the door. Why did you do that?" That kind of attitude.
Or we talked about this.
We
You
talked
never did
about
it.
yeah, that's a very common thing that married couples say to each other. We talked about this.
Right. So, but when he does do it,
Yes.
even if he does it badly, reward.
Yeah.
Like, thank you
Yeah.
for coming to greet me at the door. I really like that.
Yeah.
Just a little thing like that, or, you know, an extra kiss, or more passionate kiss,
Yeah.
or whatever, right?
Right.
You have to think this through, and you can come up with ways to express what you want in a positive way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the other part, is what you want. The way you want to tell them is that it's done in a positive way,
Yes.
right? And so you may draft out, and I recommend this, draft out what you want to say, and then change it to something, change it to the same thing, of course, but expressed positively, right? Because often we can write down what we don't want to see,
Mm-hmm.
and what we want to see, but you don't want to be negative. You want to be positive. So
Right.
what do you want to see instead? The positive things. This is what you want.
It's very much in our human nature to be negative.
Yeah, I think we're
That's,
more
you know, we tend to
automatically
tend toward, you know,
tend toward it. Yeah.
the natural inclination is to be impatient and negative.
Right.
Right. So I mean, a couple other examples might be, say, one of you takes a shower and that person who took the shower always leaves the towel on the floor.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not a great thing, because bathroom floors are disgusting. And especially if you share one with your children, which we did for a long time. But, you know, instead of, would you stop leaving your towel on the bathroom floor? It's gross.
That's so annoying.
That's so annoying.
Yeah.
How about, hey, babe, could you remember to hang your towel up when you're done with the shower? Because I don't want to get mold in the towels. You know, in the bathroom, I mean, I try to keep the floor clean, but it is kind of gross. So could you just hang up your towel?
Yeah.
You know?
That's it.
And then when they do it, just acknowledge it. Just say, hey, thanks for hanging up the towel. I really appreciate it. You know, it helps me.
Yeah.
Instead of, would you just pick up, stop leaving your towel on, you know, that annoying, grating,
Right.
nagging, you know, don't use that tone, because people don't respond to things like that, right? Like when I coach CrossFit, that's all I'm looking for is incremental little changes. Like one of the ladies I coach could barely squat, or had to hang on to something to squat when I started coaching her, and I've been coaching her for almost 3 years. She can get in a squat now, and it's just because she kept getting stronger, and I kept saying, hey, that was good. You know, every time she'd do it the right way, bam, you know, I'd say, hey, good squat. Or now I will say it to her. Your squatting looks really good, you know. And it's still not perfect because she has some structural issues. She's an older lady. But if I had just kept nagging her about how she was doing it wrong, I don't think she'd still be coming to me. Right?
True.
She'd go somewhere else where she could get some positive reinforcement.
Yeah. And this is part of human psychology as well.
Yes.
When we always tend to see the thing that's wrong, or the negative thing.
Yeah.
Right? So say, let's flip it around and say the husband gets home now and he likes to have the house clean,
Right. Yeah.
say, and so the wife has cleaned up the house, and you'll have to negotiate this out. If you've got kids, you know, there's going to be clutter and you're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. But let's say she's cleaned up the house and she vacuumed everything, and she missed where the dog ran through and left some hair on the rug, you know, and what's the natural inclination of a human is to go look at and only see that
Right.
one thing and forget all the good stuff, all the positive things that
Right.
she did to get the house clean. And if you do that, and then you just point at the dog hair, then you're just punishing them.
Yeah.
and they'll say, it's like, why should I clean the house? Why should I do this?
Right.
You're just going to punish me even when I do it, right? So that's why we say, even if they do it badly,
Mm-hmm.
don't worry about the fact that it's done badly.
Right.
Just reward for the fact that it got done.
Right.
And so the next step of this, well, I'll go into a little bit more about punishment, but
Okay.
the next thing is you just have to realize that it's probably going to take time.
Yeah.
So you start off with one thing, and it might take 3 months to get it really ingrained, and you've rewarded them, over that period, and then they're really getting it, and they're enjoying doing it because you're happy with them.
Yeah.
Right? And they're doing the same for you, right?
Right.
You have to teach your spouse how to do this too,
Yeah.
right? Both of you listen to this together, whatever, and then work on it. And it doesn't need to be overwhelming. Pick one thing and work on it for 3 months.
Yeah. Don't try to overhaul your whole relationship.
Right.
I mean, you're going to be married a long time, I hope. You're going to be married for years and years. So you've got time to figure out what is the highest priority.
Yeah.
And just work on that, right? That there's plenty of time. And the saying, it takes 21 days to make or break a habit. It goes for both of you.
Whether that's true or not.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It probably is. I don't know.
It probably, whatever.
Yeah.
Going down, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but yeah, it takes a certain amount of time, a certain number of iterations.
Right.
That's it reminds me. He'll said, and it's like when we learn a complex skill and getting up, putting down what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Disengaging from a really interesting book or video game or
Right.
a football game or whatever you're
Yeah.
doing, putting it down so you can remember where you are, getting up, going to the door to greet you, and getting out of one mode in your mind and into another is a complex behavior. It doesn't seem like it because we do it a lot
Right.
for people we really care about, and it just comes naturally, but that's because we've done it over and over again. So to master something complex, it takes a lot of time, a lot
Right.
of iterations to do it.
Right.
So that's what we're talking about here. Just because it's like, get up and come greet me at the door doesn't mean it's not a complex behavior,
Yeah.
right? We're not talking about playing the violin, but that takes even more time. I mean,
Yeah.
how many thousands of hours does it take to master playing the violin, right? So it's going to take some time.
Right.
Okay. The last point I had on that was about punishment that obviously we want to avoid, but he said really punishment, you can really hurt someone, and he says don't when you don't punish, or when you punish someone when they've done something wrong, is bad enough. Let's just say that, and we
Yeah.
shouldn't even do that.
Right.
But the way to really hurt someone is to punish them when they've done it right.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's what we were talking about, when they've done everything right except for the one little thing, and then that's all you call out. That's punishing them for doing something right, and that is going to train them to not do that thing that you want,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As opposed to if there's only reward involved, then you'll train them to do the thing that you want.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of more examples, like from our relationship. I think I've shared before that because my mom and my stepdad were sick, for multiple years, I had to make multiple trips from where we were living to where they were living, and it was a pain. I mean, it was 600 miles, and it was 10 hours if I wanted to drive, and very expensive and, time consuming if I wanted to fly, but it had to be done multiple times. So I had to leave all 6 children with you multiple times. And when both of them passed away, I had to leave all 6 kids with you for at least a week and sometimes longer.
Yep.
You know, funeral arrangements and all the stuff that goes in, cleaning out their house, all that stuff. So instead of coming home and looking around and saying, you know, the house is a mess and there's dishes in the sink and, you know, I don't know, why are the kids still in their pajamas at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and watching TV and, you know, what did you feed them while I was gone and all that stuff? I had a set of rules. And it started when the older 3 kids were pretty young, right? It's like, I don't want to know what the kids watched, what they ate, what they wore while I was gone. I just don't want to know. If I come home and the house is still in one piece and the kids are, you know,
alive.
Well, not just alive,
and
but they're
uninjured.
No, but they're doing okay. You know, they had a good time with Dad.
Right.
Then they knew, don't tell Mom that stuff because I just don't need to know. What I need to do is come home and be grateful that you were such a good dad to them while I was gone and that you took care of everything. That's all.
And I was a good dad.
Yes, you were. I'm not going to dispute that. I mean, and there's some funny stories around that. You know, I mean, one time, number 3, I struggled with nightmares or something. And so you and I had discussed, this is when Jurassic Park was on TV or whatever. Or we had the DVD, something like that. So you and I had discussed before I left for Indiana, I'm not going to let this child watch Jurassic Park because of the nightmares, you know, and I didn't want to have to deal with the aftermath of that when I got home, right? Mm-hmm. So I get to where my parents lived, and I called home to let you know that I was there, and this child answered the phone. And I said, oh, how are you doing? How's everything going? Fine. Dad let me watch Jurassic Park. I was like, what? I said, I said, oh, okay, well, did you like it? Yeah, Mom, I loved it. Okay, can I talk to Dad? So then I got on the phone with you and I was like, we talked about this. You know, we said we weren't going to do it. And you said, she said she would be fine. And I watched it with her and she's okay. So it's like, I think that's when I don't want to know what you watched while I was gone. I think that's when I installed that particular rule because it's like, it's just too nerve-wracking. I have enough on my plate going there to visit my parents who are in bad shape. I don't need to be thinking about that, right?
Sure.
So, and I just I let it go. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm 600 miles away. I'm not going to spend the rest of my phone calls with you yelling at you because you let this child watch this movie that we had agreed not to.
But you're right. And
I had to trust your judgment.
You trusted me to make a judgment call.
Yes.
And I don't remember all the details behind that,
right.
The decision, but I made as they say, an executive decision that, you know what, I think maybe we misjudged this, and I'll talk to her and we'll figure it out.
Right.
And that's what we did, and it worked out.
Yeah.
And you trusted me to do that. So.
Right.
Cool. We kind of covered, I think, the rest of this. So, is there anything else that you wanted to?
Well,
throw
just
out there?
When we're going through this process, like a lot of this is based on the fact that we take the mirror we carry around, and that mirror that should be turned on ourselves, we turn it on other people. You know, like see what you did wrong. So, and especially with our spouses, do we do this? And I am primarily talking to the ladies again. We're terrible about this. You know, I mean, our husband gets home from work and we hold that mirror up. You know, you need to do this and you need to do that and all of that. We do it. I know we do it to each other.
But let's be clear. I mean, we do it to each other. The cultural picture of the male, as screwed up as it is,
Yes, it is.
in media and Hollywood and all that, all caused by the, and I'm not going to go into what this is all about, but just the feminist movement has lost its way. And maybe one day we'll talk about that. But the point is, I mean, you can go look at anything, all the shows, all the movies, show dads to be oafs, stupid.
Yeah.
Commercials, the same. It was just this constant.
It is. The propaganda is.
But
is
that
pretty
doesn't mean that
relentless.
all men are going to act like that
No.
out in the real world. One, they don't. But men can also have it turned around. It's not like just because Hollywood presents a picture, that doesn't mean that that's what reality is. There's a whole diverse thing where in some families, the mom is the king and dad is just, he's learned to shut up
Yeah.
and stay out of the way because that's the way the marriage is run and it sucks.
Yeah.
So, why do I need to stick my neck out? Forget it. And
Yeah.
after a while, of course, the wife doesn't respect him and, he's just hanging on because he doesn't want to lose access to his children, for instance.
Yeah,
For
you
instance.
you punish your spouse enough and they will retreat.
Exactly. But it goes the other way too, right? And I just described how Hollywood and commercials and all that present
Right.
the culture, but it's not like that. It's the other way around too, where men are overbearing and the wives have retreated.
It's less and less so in our current culture from what I can
It depends on, probably depends on certain things like demographics and all that stuff. So I'm
Sure.
not going to keep arguing with you about it. I'm just saying that it's not, if you average it all out, it's probably half and half.
Okay.
We only see what Hollywood shows you.
That's true.
We don't see the other side.
Right. Right.
And there's plenty of that out there too.
Okay.
So that's why this applies both ways.
Okay. But my point is we all carry a mirror around. We all do it. And our tendency is to hold that mirror up to other people rather than turn it back on ourselves. To see the flaws, all of the flaws in your spouse, your children, and you don't ever turn that mirror around on yourself and say, you know what, I'm flawed too. I'm not perfect either. I make mistakes. I say the wrong thing. I do the wrong thing. It's just not our tendency to do that.
Right. Sure.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm going to go, we've got a couple other notes here that are really, I think, I wanted to just run through
Okay.
mainly for newlyweds or people planning on getting married,
Okay.
that sort of thing, or just married after, it's been a year or two or whatever. And these are some things that we all need to realize, but especially when you're starting out. Okay. Understand that let's see, you talked about a lot of this stuff. Okay. Understand that you're both clueless.
Yes.
You have to talk to each other about what you want, both of you.
Yes.
You're both clueless about what your partner wants. You do not know just because you think you know.
Mm-hmm.
If you have not talked to them, you don't know.
Right.
And if it may take time to encourage it out of them, to drag it out of them. It depends on how they've been raised and what their family life was like and all that stuff. You've got to you got to work on it. Don't expect everything to happen all at once and that sort of thing. So,
Right.
But do take the time. I mean, you've got your life ahead of you. So, I mean, what do we say? What was 30 years is 12,000 days or
Something like that.
something
Yeah.
along those
Yeah.
lines, right?
Yeah.
You've got, if you're just married for 30 years, and if you're young, you'll be married for a lot longer than 30 years.
Right.
You've got 12,000 days to work through stuff, to figure each other out.
Mm-hmm.
And you won't be done after 12,000 days.
No.
And if you're married for 60 years, that's 24,000 days. So, and just remember that it's not easy to change behavior. It's not easy for anyone. Just try it yourself. Try to change a behavior. Just try, and you'll be back to what you were doing in a week, right? Until you keep working on it. It takes time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And just look at gym memberships, for instance. You know, everybody makes the resolution and they join the gym and then they never go.
Right.
Right. Just that's a behavior change, right? To get up and go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And there are ways to accomplish that successfully. It's not, I'm going to go spend money on the gym and then I'm going to get up and go and exercise for an hour and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You might have to take it step by step. And so all we're saying here is with something as important as your marriage, and you can work on your, and this will work for your kids too, but start working on your spouse first, is take the time to go through the process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's all I got to say. Anything from you?
Patience.
Yeah.
You know, it's oftentimes, well, ladies, it's can be more, it can be easier to be patient with your children than your spouse, because you're looking at your spouse going, you're an adult, you know, you should know these things. And that's not always the case. It's not always the case that your spouse is going to know all of the things. They're not going to know what you're thinking. They're not going to know what you want. So just, you have to exercise a tremendous amount of patience when you're going through this process. And if you've been married a long time and you've been holding that mirror up to your spouse for years, you have a lot of work to do. And not just you, I'm not talking about just working on your spouse. You've got to work on yourself. Go back and listen to our gratitude podcast and start with that. You know, like your spouse takes the trash out, cuts the grass, you know, sweeps out the garage, works. Yeah. Just goes to work and comes home from work every day. Just say thank you. Just start with that.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to shift your mindset from this person is full of flaws and I don't know if I can stay with them, to I'm married to this person. I'm committed to this relationship and I'm going to do what it takes to make it work.
Right. And just remember, one of the major purposes of marriage is to grow.
Yes.
Both of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Not just grow as a couple, but grow as individual people.
Right.
You get better. And if you just run from your marriage, then you're just running from improvement.
Yeah.
You're running from getting better.
Right.
So, whoa, that's an interesting way to end that one. I think we're about done.
I think we've covered it. I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something you can do because you take it in small steps.
Yes. And it is something that we had to do. I mean,
yes.
we're not speaking from, hey, we got this right from the beginning, you know, not at all. It took us a long time. Yes. Yep. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Sign us off.
All right. If this has been Marriage on the Half Shell, I hope you have a good weekend.